Hello people of the web and YouTube, Did here. Today I'm going to be talking about all the consoles I have ever modded, as well as some of the ones I plan to mod here in the near future. Now guys, as this video goes on, you're going to notice a couple of things. First of all, most of the consoles I have ever modded have in fact been soft modded, which means I haven't actually needed to take them apart in order to do anything. However, when it comes to some of the soft modded ones, there are some hard mod things that I highly recommend you guys to do, which means you will have to open your console in order to perform said actions. But yeah, with that said, most of the consoles I talk about today are soft modded and don't require being opened up at all. However, some of them do require being opened up, like the Xbox 360, which I will talk about later. But yeah, for now, let us get to this. First of all, I'm going to talk about the Nintendo Wii. This is the first console I've ever modified, and back in the day when I first modified it, the only way to do so was to use the LEGO Indiana Jones exploit. Now this exploit may seem familiar for those of you that have ever modded the original Xbox. Basically, we load in a modified game save onto an SD card, put it in our Wii, and then load in the exploit game, and from there we basically load in our modified game save, and it modifies the console. Now this method is a little bit more tedious and it does still work even now today in 2019. However, I'd highly recommend switching over to the letter bombing method, which only requires you to put a handful of files on your SD card, put it in the Wii, and you basically just email the rest of the exploit to the Wii in order to exploit it. And overall, that method is way easier, and I have modded just about 3 other Nintendo Wiis using that method, and I gotta say that method overall is the easiest and it has the less things that can go wrong. But yeah, with that said, why would we even want to modify the Nintendo Wii, you're asking? Well, the first thing I'd recommend getting when you modify the Nintendo Wii are all the emulators, because the emulators on the Nintendo Wii are actually pretty good. Now, even though there's no retro arch, there are some really good homebrew emulators out there for the console. Now, the one that I'm probably going to be showing off the most in the video on screen right now is the Nintendo 64 emulator. Now, back in the day, and I'm still running the older version of this app just to show you what would happen, it would actually glitch out a lot on you in certain games. However, you'd get full FPS. Nowadays, I think most of the glitches have been fixed or patched, so you can actually run Nintendo 64 pretty good overall on a modified Nintendo Wii. But yeah, besides running emulators and such, you can actually modify the Nintendo Wii to even play movies or play region-free DVDs. So yeah, with that said, having a modified Wii is actually really good, and one of the things I'd actually recommend you guys to get once you modify your Nintendo Wii, before I forget, are some DVD backup programs, because the one thing you want to do is back up your Nintendo Wii games to either a USB drive or an external hard drive. Now, when it comes to actually opening up and being able to fix the DVD drive in the Nintendo Wii, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, so I highly recommend saving yourself a headache if you have a working Nintendo Wii right now. Just start playing your games off the USB. Trust me, it's gonna perform a lot better, games will load quicker, and overall you're gonna save that hardware and it will last you many more years to come if you don't use it as much. But yeah, with that said, besides all the software and some of the other mods you can get, you can even theme the Wii and kind of make it your own. This is one of the main features I like about the Nintendo Wii, because you're able to add your own personalized look to the console, which differentiates it from someone else's Nintendo Wii. Now, if you guys want to know how to make Nintendo Wii themes, I highly recommend going and checking out my old Nintendo Wii theme guide video. Now, it's a little bit outdated, but overall the steps will get you in the right direction, and you should be able to make a modified Nintendo Wii theme fairly easily. But yeah, with that said, let's take a look at the original Xbox. Now, I know I've already made a video on the original Xbox, but this is probably one of my second consoles I have ever modded, so I'm going to be talking about it here again, but I won't be going in as much detail as I did earlier. Now, with that said, to modify the original Xbox, it's basically the same as how you used to modify the Wii back in the day. You use a game save and an exploitable game, and basically once you got the system modified using that method, you can do all kinds of things. You can FTP games to the Xbox itself. You can load different emulators and things, and you can even ditch the DVD drive entirely, as well as hot swap in a new hard drive if you wish. Now, this is one of the things I actually recommend doing as soon as you modify the original Xbox. I recommend ripping out the old hard drive using Chimp and hot swapping in a new hard drive. That way, if your hard drive ever dies, or the new one dies I should say, you always got the old backup with the old EEPROM key on it, so you can always clone another hard drive again. But yeah, with that said, before I forget this entirely, there is another thing you need to do, and this actually requires opening the console. As well as the hot swapping method, both those things require opening the console, but this one is a must. If you're running any kind of original Xbox and you're on a non-newer board, you're not on a revision 1.6, I recommend removing the clock capacitor, just as everyone else does, because if you don't remove the clock capacitor, the acid from the capacitor will slowly drip out over time, or the capacitor may even explode, which can result in the motherboard traces getting damaged and the console not turning on. So yeah, I highly recommend you guys to remove that clock capacitor, save your console's life, and preserve it. That way the console can be around for another few decades or so. But yeah, with that said, when it comes to the original Xbox, the theming side of it is actually fairly easy to do as well. You can make a theme in maybe 5 minutes or less, push it over via FTP and run it, just like that. And overall, the original Xbox, when it comes to software themes and things, I think is pretty good, and it still holds up to date. It's on par with the Wii scene, I think. You have just about everything you'd ever need, and it's still constantly getting updated to this day. And just as a bonus, before I forget, there are different operating systems or OSs, or I don't know the technical term off the top of my head here, but there are many different dashboards. There it is, dashboards for the original Xbox. On my original Xbox, I decided to use Unleash X. That way I get the quick, easy shortcut to quit my games without actually having to turn the whole console on and off in order to swap a game out or to load a different thing up. But yeah, with that said, whatever dashboard you choose is up to you. Most people recommend Unleash X, and I recommend it too. It's very beginner friendly. It lets you see how the hard drives and your DVD drives are doing and things. It also lets you control the fan speed and such. But yeah, with that said, that's basically all the things I can think of off the top of my head for the original Xbox. However, like I said before, I made a video on me modifying my original Xbox as well as some of the things I've done. So if you want more in-depth guides and things, just go check out my older video on the original Xbox if you wish to modify your Xbox and get some cool apps on and such. But yeah, with that said, here's where I take a little bit of an oddball turn. I actually modify the PlayStation 3. That was the next console I've ever modified, and I have to say, modifying the PlayStation 3 was a little bit difficult, but overall, as long as you know what you're doing, what kind of PlayStation 3 you got, as well as what firmware you're on, you should be good to go. Other than that, be careful though, there is a lot of misinformation out there for the PlayStation 3, and you can in fact accidentally mess up or update the console and make it so you can't actually modify it. If you go too far in firmware, it gets very hard to modify the console then. But yeah, speaking of firmware, my PS3, I believe Slim, was running 4.8.1, and I saw there was a custom firmware out for 4.8.2, so basically I loaded an app in to determine how low I can downgrade my console if I ever need to, and after that I basically just went on the web browser for the PlayStation 3 and loaded up the exploit site. Yes, that's right, that's all you're going to need is just a web browser on the PlayStation 3 pretty much in order to modify your console. However, you may also need a flash drive if I remember. But yeah, with that said, some of the reasons why you'd want a modified PlayStation 3 are just about the same as the other consoles I talked about. You do not want to be opening up a PlayStation 3 to replace its DVD drive. It's a pain in the butt, trust me. The PS3 is probably one of the harder consoles to get open in my opinion. So yeah, with that said, I highly recommend getting a DVD backup program of some kind on there once you're modified to play burned backups, so to say, or not burned backups, to play your backups off of a hard drive, just because it will preserve the hardware and you'll put less strain and tear on the laser. But yeah, other than that, when you have a modified PlayStation 3, you're also capable of doing a lot of different backups and things in older consoles. You can actually play PSP games, PS1 games, PS2, and PS3 games all on a modified PlayStation 3 if you modify the console. And even then, you're not even limited to PlayStation games. You can actually run RetroArch, which is very close to the PC builder RetroArch, believe it or not. You can even run all kinds of Atari emulators as well as different kind of arcade machine emulators and such. Overall, it's a really fun experience. I've loaded about 25 Game Boy games that I've actually owned onto my PlayStation 3, and I don't see anything wrong with them at all when I boot up the console and load RetroArch. Now with that said, the PlayStation 3 isn't perfect in terms of emulation though. There are some consoles you can't run. As far as I'm aware, there's a limitation for the fact that you cannot run a Nintendo 64 emulator, as far as I'm aware, as I should say. But yeah, I don't think you can run Nintendo 64 emulators, but other than that, once you have a modified console, you can do all kinds of things. You can rip your games, make backups, and you can even go as far as to modify the games or FTP into the console while playing a game, which I think is really cool. So you could be playing something like Persona 5, let's say, and you could load in some PlayStation 1 games while you're playing a game on the PlayStation 3, which is really cool. So cool, in fact, every console I've mentioned so far up to this one, you could not do that. You can only FTP when you're not in a game. This one, you can FTP while in a game, and you can also change the fan settings and such while you're playing a game, or you can record in-game, in fact, if you have Webman installed. But yeah, as some words of precaution here, if you get Webman, be careful with it. Don't go to the web page and just start clicking on the temperature settings. Because trust me, even though it looks like you may be refreshing the page and getting your temperature, that's not how it works. If you click that number, you're gonna actually boost or change the fan speed. And I almost broke my PlayStation 3 fan doing this the first time around because I did not hear the fan go off. So yeah, if you're going to be using Webman to control the hardware on the PlayStation 3, I really recommend just letting the system control settings go. Let the PlayStation 3 operate the fan at its own pace. However, if you start noticing some temperature dips here and there, you can boost the temperature up as long as it's not too audible that you're going to break the fan, and you should be good to go. But yeah, there's so much when it comes to the PlayStation 3. I'm sorry if I missed some things here or there. However, I do plan to mod one in the future for a tutorial maybe. I don't know if I can re-soft mod and custom firmware a soft modded PS3, but if I can, I will do it all over again just to give you guys a tutorial. But yeah, with that said, how about we hop on to our next console, which is the Xbox 360. So okay guys, just as a disclaimer, my Xbox 360, I did a hardware mod to it. I basically flashed a DVD drive and I had a light on drive which required me opening it up and probing a certain point on my console in order to flash the firmware to the drive. But with most Xbox 360 drives, you can actually flash them relatively easy. In most cases, people will actually do it for free just because of how easy it is. All you really do is hook the SATA cable up to the DVD drive in the Xbox 360, and then hook it up to a compatible computer and motherboard, and basically flash it over with Jungle Flasher. Now, the only issue here is if you have a light on drive, let's say like I had, you will have to flip the DVD drive over and make some probes to probe certain points on the console in order to get the DVD drive to dump its keys as well as the flash. Now with that said, since I have no way of backing up Xbox 360 games and I don't intend to use the flash DVD drive, modifying my 360 DVD drive like this was just for preventative maintenance other than soft modding or to play backups. Now for those of you that don't know, the Xbox 360 has a key paired with the DVD drive, so if your DVD drive died, your whole console is trash unless you get a reader of some kind to read the NAND, I believe. I can't remember exactly what you have to read. So yeah, this is just preventative maintenance. I highly recommend you guys to actually flash your Xbox 360 if you have the know-how and tools to do so. That way you get your keys backed up and things. That way if you need to replace the DVD drive in the future, all it takes is then ordering a DVD drive and then flashing your key over to that in order to replace the DVD drive in your 360. But yeah, as a bonus, if you do flash your Xbox 360, you can in fact play burned DVDs. You do need DVD plus Rs, which are relatively pricey, but overall, it lets you play games free if you want to do that. However, I don't condone it. But yeah, with that said, that's about all I did when it comes to my Xbox 360. I do, however, plan to RGH hack my Xbox 360 in the future, which I will make a tutorial on, or at least a video on me doing it. It's a little bit involved and it requires a lot of looking around. There's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to doing it, so hopefully I get it right. But overall, it's going to be a process, and I'm pretty sure you guys are going to like the video whenever I get around to modifying my 360 with an RGH glitch chip. But yeah, with that said, that's pretty much it for all the consoles I've modded. Now I'm going to talk about some of the ones I plan to mod here in the future. Now the first console I plan to mod soon would be my Nintendo Ds Lite. The R4 cards I see online have been getting so cheap, in fact you can pick one up for $12, and after that you pretty much have a modified, well, DS. You just load some firmware up on a little SD card, put it in the card, and then put it in the DS slot, and you're good to go. So I'm definitely going to be modifying my DS sometime here in the future, as well as making a video on it. But yeah, other than modifying my DS, I plan to also modify my Nintendo Switch, and hopefully I've never shown my Nintendo ID here because I don't want to get banned right now because I don't plan on modding it right away. But in the future, I do plan on modding my Nintendo Switch. I'm going to keep the firmware as low as I can for now. But yeah, with that said, that's basically it for today's video. Those are all the consoles I have ever modded, and as well as some of the ones I plan to mod here in the near future. But yeah guys, with that said, like I said, I'm going to leave today's video off here now. I'm hoping this was at least somewhat entertaining for you guys, and if you guys see a console you guys want to actually see me mod, let me know down below, and I'll try my best to give you guys a tutorial if I can. And if I can't, I'll let you know, and I'll wait till I get a donor console or something to do the tutorial with. But yeah, for now, I'm going to leave this off here. TZPK signing off. Peace. If you don't back up your EEPROM, you'll have your hard drive get locked, possibly or unlocked even. And from there, I bought an adapter so that I can plug the VGA end of this driver board into my